Hi everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome back. This is Vinyl and Paper, a channel about paper products and stationery and vinyl records. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a nice ring into the new year. Mine was super low key. My partner and I went to a bar in our neighborhood and ended up running into someone we knew, and we just chit-chatted for the last couple of hours of 2025. And yeah, it is freezing and dark all the time up here, it feels like. So I've definitely been feeling in the resting and nesting mode. However, the theme of today's video is all about New Year's organization. I'm going to tell you about the goal setting process that I'm going into my second year using to set goals for the year and stick to them. And then I'm going to flip through this big stack of records that I've played in the last couple of weeks that need to go home to their appropriate sections. I need to recatalog them. So first, let's get into the goals. Now, I want to acknowledge that there is a lot of New Year's resolutions noise out there. I've gotten many targeted ads for things like mood board workshops, intention setting programs, productivity Notion templates, and the like. That kind of content is very up my alley, but you can really set goals any time of the year. It doesn't have to be in January. And actually, after doing the process for 2026, I actually decided that I want to shift it next time to start on my birthday. It's more of a milestone for myself that's a little more significant than the new year, and it introduces new activities in a slower season for me. So less consumerism, fewer trends, things are a little bit more manageable at work. So I'm going to redo this later in the year to just restart a little bit sooner and have that new birthday cadence. I've also seen some posts pointing out this year that going full steam ahead with goals in January isn't necessarily natural. These posts say we're supposed to be at rest in the middle of winter, somewhat in hibernation still, at least in the northern hemisphere. It's very cold, it's dark all the time. So these people also say that a good time to set new goals is actually in the spring when the world is waking up and there's rebirth, shoots are coming out of the ground, etc. This may be why spring cleaning is a popular activity in that time. I'm really excited about my process, so January is as good a time as any, but I have felt a little bit slower and more tired lately. So these are the items that I've used and will use for setting and sticking to my goals for the year. Basically, the process is one of writing many lists until my lofty goals are distilled down to small actions every few days that will ensure I meet the goals. So I'm going to share how I think through this, not the exact structure because otherwise it would be super long, but I could make a longer video if anyone is interested in hearing more. So part of what makes the process work for me is something called OKRs. If you haven't heard of OKRs, it stands for Objectives and Key Results. And it's a goal-setting process or framework that many companies use to set and achieve their biggest priorities. I've been using and writing OKRs at work for a long time, so the process kind of naturally flowed for me. Last year was my first time doing this for myself. And when I sat down to reflect on the year, I didn't really have any plans for what I would do. And this process I'm about to share with you just kind of organically wrote itself. And I worked on the goals that I wrote with that process all year, and I didn't tweak that much for this year. So let me talk through it roughly and show you, as I mentioned, the things that I did use and will use this year to meet all of my goals, or hopefully the majority of them. So the first thing I did, actually the whole process really happened in here, and then I transferred it to a couple of other places, which I'll talk about. The first thing I did was, this is my journal, and I wrote out some of the things of note that happened in the previous year. And what I used to jog my memory were these two books. This is my One Line a Day journal, where it's a memory keeping book where you write one line every day. And this is my planner from last year where I do life logging. So in here, I basically wrote down everything I did. And I also have a gratitude practice in here that I use to write a highlight of every day. So I browsed through these to remember what even happened last year. And I wrote down things of any size, anything from making Mickey Mouse shaped waffles to visiting Berlin for the first time. Then with that list of what happened, I did a short feelings audit. So 2 lists, feelings I want more of and feelings I want less of in the year. Now this sounds kind of touchy-feely, but it's a really strong signal to me, because if I meet a goal, but it leads to or produces the wrong feelings, it wasn't a success. So it's really important to me, like, to be in touch with both on paper what I want to accomplish, but also like how I want to feel like when I have accomplished it. After the feelings audit, I listed out the means to those feelings. So what could happen for those feelings to become true? And that has both times led to a pretty long list. And because I don't want to have too many goals so that I can help with focus, I clustered the list into themes. And I came up with 4 themes for the year. So these 4 themes of how to get to these feelings I want more of and less of, I rephrased those themes as objectives for the year. So this is the O in OKRs. And they're written a little bit lofty because it's for the whole year, right? They're supposed to be a little bit ambitious sounding for me. Then under each of those 4 objectives, I wrote key results under each. And these are basically, key results are basically like smaller goals that when they're all achieved will necessarily mean that the objective is met. So they have to be written very carefully to be structured in that way. It's not like you're writing objectives and then to-dos under it. There's definitely a skill to writing OKRs that comes with practice and doing it for a while. It comes pretty easily to me. So I think that's why when I started writing out these lists, the OKR structure sort of just flowed from there. So from these key results, I then break those down into smaller activities. I tried to break these smaller activities into smaller chunks of time than a year. I do it quarterly, and that's basically 3 months at a time. And doing that for me makes it feel more achievable. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then I have room to reevaluate part of the way through the year if something isn't working, or I want to add a new goal or abandon one. So then I take all of these like 3 months worth of activities and I put them physically in my calendar. I do this both digitally and in here. So this is my physical planner for 2026. And I basically take the activities and like schedule them in my plans, in my calendar. And it makes these activities way more easy for me to do and stick to if they're scheduled, unlike just a long to-do list, which like sometimes I look at a long to-do list and I don't do any of them. So that's basically it. It sounds maybe kind of complicated, but once a few years ago, I only had one goal, and that was to play the piano at least every other day. So I go about this organically and what process works for me at the time to accomplish what's important to me at that time. And last year, there were many things that I wanted to change, and this flow, this system kind of just came out of that. And it ended up working really, really well. I tweaked it a little bit from last year before I did any of this, before I wrote down what happened last year, I did a quick retrospective on how this OKR process went for 2025. Roughly the good things are A, that it worked for me, the process, and B, the calendar part was really good. That really ensured, like having those activities scheduled ensured that I got a lot of my goals done. What didn't work so well is I got pretty burnt out from the process. I got a little bit too ambitious and I scheduled too many things, like, for all of my free time all in a row, and I didn't leave a lot of room to breathe or rest or recharge. So what I changed this time was just fewer goals spread out more. I noticed when I was writing my goals for January to March that I had a lot clustered in that first 3 months of the year, and I forced myself to prioritize my 4 objectives to figure out, okay, what's the number 1 and 2, and then I kind of diluted the other 2 into activities further out into the year, or I will turn them into goals farther out in the year. So if any of this sounds interesting, I'm experimenting with turning this into something more structured. So if you're curious about learning more about this process, just leave a like on the video and I'll let you guys know when I have something concrete to share. So that's my goal setting process for the year. And let's get into the records now. I think what I'll do is just quickly flip through this stack, and I might open some of them up if there's something interesting to show. This first one is Talking Heads, and it's called Stop Making Sense. This was like a concert film in the early 80s, and this is the soundtrack to that, basically the recording. The cool thing about this one is it has this original sleeve insert in it with some really nice black and white images of the performance. I spun this last night while making dinner, and after dinner I actually re-listened to an interview on Fresh Air where Terry Gross interviews David Byrne about just himself, about Talking Heads, and it was for the 40th anniversary of Stop Making Sense, which screened in theaters a couple of years ago. Really great interview. If you have any interest in David Byrne or Talking Heads or like this album, definitely listen to that. You can find it on YouTube. The next one is Viagra Boys. I put this on yesterday. This is called Cave World, this album. This is a post-punk band from Sweden. They are super danceable and fun, but also a bit chaotic at the same time. I showed this a little while ago, but this is my vinyl listening journal, and it's a very, very new practice. I only have 2 entries in here, but what I do is I will put a record on and sort of just write a stream of consciousness, my thoughts about the record, and I have a pack of 3 of these, and I want to fill them all up to kind of be like another forcing function to be more present when I put records on. So this I found at a record shop in Austin, Texas called End of an Ear. Really great shop. And yeah, I've seen this band live. They're super fun. I particularly like this pink, the shade of pink on the border of this album art, which I also like. And I thought that this inner sleeve was pretty neat too. So just sharing that. Ooh, next one, Ramones. So this is a live album, and it's a show that they did on New Year's Eve in 1979. And it's kind of a tradition for me to put this on every New Year's Eve as I'm getting ready for going out for the night. I don't remember where I found this, but it was a really, really fun find. And I love Joey's stage presence so much, and the things that he just like yells in between songs and when he's introing new songs. I really highly recommend listening to this if you like them. Next one is Pet Shop Boys. I actually talked about this album in the video where I talked about my new vinyl categorization system. So I won't say too much about it now, but this is one of my best sounding albums. It has a very warm, nice audio. This one I talked about a lot in my last video. You can check it out if you like, but this is called We're a Happy Family. It's a Ramones tribute album. The bands are all incredible, as you can see, and this cover art is a rendition of the band by Rob Zombie, who co-produced the album. It's on this beautiful, really cool zombie green. And then this is a red 7-inch of one of the songs on that, which is Red Hot Chili Peppers' cover of Havana Affair. And the other side is the Ramones version. I think that's a really cool series. I think this is the name of the series, Side by Side. Great find. Ooh, Amon Amarth. So I put this on a couple of weeks ago when I had one of my best friends over for dinner. This is a melodic death metal band. They have a Viking theme. They're super fun. I love their melodies. It's that classic death metal growl. The record comes in this really cool red and black vinyl. This is a really good album if you like them. And there's a very great portrait of the band on the inside. Another quite different from that one album that I played during that little dinner at my place is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. One highlight of this one is there are a few posters on the inside of this, and one of them is of this very mystical I got the purple version. I think this comes in different colors. Photo of the 3 pyramids in Giza. So, oh gosh, I will figure out how to refold that later. Next, we have Electric Wizard, a record called Dope Throne. This actually isn't mine. It's my partner's album. This is a doom / stoner metal band from the UK. If you like doom metal, they're great. And actually, I will show a different one next. This is another doom metal band, Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, also from the UK. This album is called The Night Creeper. Really, really good album as well. This is one of my most random albums. This is a French pop record. The artist is called Claude Pelgag, and this album is called L'Étoile Thoracique. I randomly discovered this album through Spotify's recommendation to me a few years ago, and I loved one song in particular so much that I ended up finding this record on Discogs and buying it from a Discogs seller. And this is like one of the prettiest records. It's like, I don't remember what it's officially called, but I always call it like cotton candy vinyl. It's very like twee whimsical. There might be a ukulele involved if I was hearing that correctly. But I really love some of the songs on this album. It's really good. And then finally, this one is not out because I actually played it. I did not spin it, but my partner found it in the wrong spot in my records, and I have to re-catalog it into the right section. I'll probably put it in the Indie 2000 section. This is called Congratulations by the band MGMT. I really liked this album when I first heard it and ended up finding it in a record store in Brooklyn around the time that I listened to it. It's really different from the album that came before it, to me at least, and sounds very, very good on vinyl. This is a good record to put on vinyl, or to play on vinyl. That's about it, y'all. That's my stack of records, my goal setting process. It's actually a bit later in the afternoon than I planned for it to be by the time I finished filming this. So I'm going to try to speed through the rest of my day. The first thing I'm going to do is replace the ink cartridge in my Kaweco Sport because it is totally dry. So this was green and I don't have any more green. I ran out. So I believe this is, Midnight Blue. So I will be replacing it with Midnight Blue. A lot of the time, most of the time, I will flush out the pen before changing the ink if I'm changing the color, but I'm kind of in the mood to see how the green flows into the blue and like see that pretty gradient. So I think I'm just gonna change it now without doing the flush. And then I'm just gonna do speed cleaning because that's a thing that has to happen sometimes. Not exactly fun, but you know, it feels fun or feels nice after I'm done. So it's kind of like an investment for future me. Anyway, Happy New Year again, and thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.